everybody, it's Miss Marie, and today we are going to be doing a paint-along pumpkin Halloween scene. If you've picked up your kit from the library, you should have a canvas. Yours is probably a little bigger than mine. I'm using an older canvas. A paintbrush, a sponge, and some paints. We have brown, white, green, yellow, black, and of course orange for the pumpkin. So I'm going to be tipping this down to show you what we're going to be doing, and it's going to be really nice. It's not a jack-o'-lantern, it's a pumpkin, so you can leave it up through November. Really, it's perfect for this time of year, and it's a lot of fun to do. Very easy, and teaches you a little bit of techniques here too. Okay, I'm going to turn this down so you can see. All right, first I'm going to open my canvas. Most of yours will come wrapped in plastic, so be sure to turn it over so you don't scratch the front of it. You can cut off the plastic with a scissor. Some other things you might want to grab and gather from around your house are a paper plate for mixing your paints, maybe a plastic knife for scooping the paint out onto the paper plate, a paper towel, a little thing of water to rinse your brushes, and a pencil and a ruler. I'm going to show you what goes around before later. Okay, so first things first. This pumpkin that we're going to make is going to be sitting up against a fence, an old fence that's sort of a brownish, grayish color. So we're going to have to do that as our background. So we are going to scoop out, if you want to, or you can use your paintbrush to do this too, scoop out some brown paint. And then I always make sure I wipe off anything I'm going to mix into the white, because, well, actually any of the colors, but if you mix too much into the white, then it becomes sort of a grayish color and doesn't help too much to lighten other colors. So we're going to try to keep that white pretty clean for now. And we'll put some white here. I think we're going to need more than that. Maybe a little bit more. You should have plenty of paint in your paint set that you picked up from the library. All right, I'll move that over there. I'm just going to wipe some of that off on there so I can use it. All right. So we're going to get a little bit of brown and a little bit of white onto our sponge, and we're going to start just brushing it back and forth. Oops, more than that. You could also use your paintbrush for this, but it will take a lot longer. But we're not in a rush, so do it how you feel comfortable. I like using the sponge for the background. I like that it comes out very streaky. You can see that. It's a very streaky coloration, which looks more realistic, looks more like a natural fence. Not a fence that's been painted, but a fence that's been left to go natural in the sun and wind and rain. It gets this sort of weathered look to it. Somewhere between sometimes they even look a little gray. So that's why we don't want it to be perfect. We're going to keep on coming back in and not over mixing the colors. We want there to be some streaks in there, some darker spots, some lighter spots. And I like how that is looking. So I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes. I suppose if you're very impatient, you could come back with a hairdryer and blow it dry, but I like to let it just air dry. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be back. Okay, so I let that dry. I went back in and I added a few more white streaks because I wanted it to be a little bit lighter, and I think it's good and, pretty dry. So we're going to now add in a few lines to make it look like there's some boards back there, like a fence would be. So first I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure, and I'm going to divide this into about 3. So on mine, 3 would be a little bit, if I divide it into thirds, it'll be a little bit more than 3 inches for each. So it'll be like 3.5, 7, and so that'll be thirds. Yours might be a little bit longer, so you might want to do 4 inches, 8 inches, and 12. I believe yours was 9 by 12. So can't remember what I ordered. I ordered it a while ago, so I'll have to see what comes. But either way, just roughly make it three different sections. So I'm going to take my pencil and just lightly mark it. I'm gonna do it right at the edge so I don't get too much pencil on my canvas. So I said 3.5 and about 7. And it'll be a little bit, this last one will be a little bit smaller, but that's okay. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on the bottom so that they come out pretty straight. So 3.5, 7, okay. And I'll try to make those a little darker so you can see them. See, I have my marks here and here and here and here. And then I'm gonna put my ruler on there very lightly. I'm gonna line it up at the top and the bottom mark so it's a pretty straight line. That's how you get, you know, otherwise the lines can get all jiggly. And I'm gonna make a very light pencil mark right down there. Probably won't even see it because of all the glare. Here, I'll try again. I can make mine a little bit darker, I mean, so you can see it. You should do yours really light just so that you can barely see it. Okay, so you see that pencil line there. I'm going to do another one at the other marks that I made. And we're going to have 3 lines now, okay? So now I am going to, I'm still going to use this plate. I did get another plate in case I need more space for mixing later. I'm going to put some black onto my paper plate using my knife, my handy dandy scooper knife here. Don't need a lot because we're just going to be painting some lines here and some nails. It's going to look like nails at the top. All right, and I'll rinse my knife off over here in my water. I'm going to take my paintbrush and dip it in the black. And I'm going to try to make a nice thin line following that pencil line that I did. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe I'll hold mine this way. Mine's going to be a little bit thick. Oops. No, I'm not happy with how that's coming out. So I am going to wipe it down. This is the great thing about using paint, is you can fix it. I can fix that. And I'll go back and I'll get a little bit of white and a little bit of brown, and I'm going to just go back over that and try again. That's the good part about using acrylic paint, is it's very easy to clean up and try again. So I'm going to go get a little more white, a little more brown. I'm just going to cover that black spot up that I thought came out too thick. I'm going to try again. See, I like to show you my mistakes if I can, because everybody makes mistakes. Okay, and let me use my sponge to blend that. You are barely going to be able to see that. All right. Okay, now I could let it dry a little bit longer, but I am trying to show you how to do this. So I'll come back and do my 3.5 and my 3.5 at the top. Oops. 3.5 and 3.5, and I will draw that line again, and I will try to do better this time. Let's see, let me get my paintbrush clean and go back in and use the black. And I'm going to just cut it really light. That's better. I just have to be patient, that's all. I'm always in a rush to show everybody everything, but you know what? I'm going to take my time. I'm going to make that black line pretty straight. Doesn't have to be perfect because, again, this is supposed to be a wood fence, which is natural, so it's not going to be perfect. All right, let's do this other one. I hope the glare isn't too much. I hope you can see it, because this is actually a really fun project. I really am enjoying this. I love using just mixed paints to make textures. I think it's really neat. All right, oh, here we go, almost done. I'm not going to overthink it because I'm going to be putting a pumpkin there later, so I'm not going to worry about it. And I'm going to keep the black on my brush. I might even scoop out a little bit more black, because now we are going to add some details. A little more black onto my plate here. And I'm gonna go back in and get a little bit more of that brown color that I had. And I'm going to rinse off my knife again. We are going to add some details now. So first, just the black. And we are going to go in and we are going to add some circles. Just a few circles, not too big. They don't have to be perfect circles either. Those are sort of like the nails that hold the fence in, okay? And so that's going to be at the top. You can even make them smaller here. Let me show you. Oops. How you can make them smaller if you like. I'm going to brush that out. Okay, look how nice and easy that covers up. If you're not happy with how it comes out, just get back in there, try again. It really is just adding to the woody effect. So if you want to make the nails even smaller, you can use the end of your brush, dip it in the black, and just go boop, boop, boop. There you go. I think I like it better like that, because now I want to have plenty of space to add some other details. We're going to mix that brown that I brought out with the black. Now let me make sure I can show you. I'll show you that out. This is going to be the top of it. So it's going to be the little dots at the top. That's the top of the fence. So now we're going to add some knots to the wood, right? So that it looks a little bit more realistic. We're going to blend in the black and the brown to make a very dark brown. We're going to go in and put in sort of like a little half moon, maybe right about here. Okay, you see my half moon again. This is the top. And then I'm going to just sort of add, I don't know what you would call this, just sort of an accent around the outside like that. And like that. I'm not going to overthink it because we don't want to add too much fuss. There we go. And that is a wood knot. And I can even make this trail off a little bit longer if I wanted to. Come in like that. And that's kind of, you know, natural in wood. If you were looking at a fence that's made out of wood, it's going to have some knots in it. I know I have a fence like that. It's a cedar fence and it's got a lot of knots in it. I'm going to do another one of those over here. I'm going to do another little half moon. And then I'm going to turn my brush sideways so it's a little thinner. And I'm going to add some details, some swoops around that knot. That. All right. Maybe this middle one doesn't have a knot. Maybe this one just has some darker spots in it. Maybe we can add a few more darker spots down here. All right. So we just used the dark brown, the brown and the black, and made a dark brown, and we've added some details to the wood to make it look a little bit more realistic. Now I'm going to let that dry again. I'm going to come back and show you how to add in a pumpkin. So I've decided that I still want to add a few more little, I like how it's coming along. I would like to make it look a little bit more like wood. So I'm going to come back in before I let it dry all the way. And I'm going to add a few more streaks, just gently here, 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 here. Yeah, I kind of like that. And I'm just going to let it dry more. These are very light. I'm doing it so light. All right, just to add a little bit more details to my wood. Okay, and soon the pumpkin, but let it dry all the way. Okay, so I have let my fence dry pretty well here. And now we're going to get to the part where we do the pumpkin. Now, you could use your hand. Mine is kind of big for this canvas, and I have to turn it so you could see, so I'm not going to use my hand. I'm going to use a bowl. Let me turn this towards you. And this is my bowl, so I will clean it, make sure there's no paint on it. And I'm going to position it so that it's a little bit off the canvas because we don't want it to be a perfect circle. It's going to be sort of flat on the ground. And I'm going to use some white paint to very, very lightly highlight the shape of the pumpkin that I want. And it's, like I said, very light because we're going to go over all of that with some orange later because pumpkins are orange, aren't they? So I'm just gonna make sure I get the rough shape. There we go, perfect. And I will wash my bowl. So I have the rough shape of the pumpkin that I want, right? And then look, I can even go like that if I want to, but it's fine because I know exactly where I'm going with this. Let's see. Just show you the outline. There we go. Okay. So the next thing we're gonna do is add in a stem. So we do like a little half circle here, just to measure it out. And then we come up and we're going to draw a stem. My stem is going to curl this way. So I'm going to come up. You can curl it whichever way you like. And just got the rough shape of a stem there. That looks pretty good. I like that. I'm going to use some white paint now, and I'm going to draw. You know how the pumpkins have like segments to them, right? So I'm going to start here at the bottom where I drew my stem, and I'm going to make sort of like an eye shape. But that eye shape, so it curves up and then back down, and then it doesn't finish. It kind of goes off the canvas like that, right? And I'm going to do the same thing in the other direction. Curve that eye back in. So now we have sort of a curved eye in the middle. And I'm going to do that again on one side over here. Again, I can use a little white paint. It doesn't have to be much because we're trying to keep it light. These are just some guidelines to help us remember where we're going to do the painting. And the same is going to go here. Okay, and then maybe I want one more over here. I think I have enough room, but I'm going to do it very small. It's not going to go all the way down. It's going to come from about here to there. One more segment. Maybe I can swoop it down a little bit more. There we go. Okay. All right. That looks pretty good. So now we're going to go back in with the orange and white, and we're going to paint that in. Just give me a minute. I'm going to let it dry just a little bit. It doesn't have to dry really too much. Okay, so now I'm ready to come in and add the orange. I'm going to first put some white on my paper plate. And at this point, it doesn't matter too much if we mix the orange and the white because we're going to be mixing it in a second anyway. So I'm going to scoop that out, put some orange in there, and a lot of nice. Oh, that's a beautiful orange. That's actually called pumpkin orange. And I'm going to go in first with my white brush, my white paint and clean white brush. And I'm just going to go in like this and paint this middle bump with the white. And we're going to be layering a little bit because that is how we're going to get some texture to this pumpkin. It won't be flat. It'll have some colors and textures to it. So you notice how I'm sort of going I'm going in the direction that the bump shape is. And that again is going to create the illusion of texture. It's also going to give it a little depth so that it looks like it's three-dimensional. Right, so it doesn't look like a flat pumpkin sitting there. It's going to look like a pumpkin that could actually be felt and touched. So I'm going to keep doing that. Swooping back and forth, giving it some texture and some depth. Okay, now I'm going to come in. Oops, no problem. I'm going to come back and clean that up later. Okay, I'm going to go back in with my orange. And I'm going to lightly layer some orange on there. Oh, that's such a pretty color. And remember, we're going to keep that shape. So we're not going to just go back and forth. We're going to go swoop this way and swoop that way. Swoop this way, swoop that way. Swoop this way, swoop that way. Just to give it some depth and some. Again, we're not going to blend it perfectly. We like that it's not blended perfectly. Coming back and forth, and that creates some texture and some depth so it looks like it's 3D. And then we're going to do the same thing on these other segments, but we're not going to rinse the brush. We're going to let it just kind of blend because we're going to end up blending it anyway. Now this one, the swoop is only going to have to be in one direction. And it's okay if we get up close to the other one, but we're going to try to keep that segment shape. And you see how the white lines that I drew are just pretty much disappearing under the paint. And that's okay. And I'll come back in with some more orange. I love fall, so this is like a fun project for me. You see how when I got close to that segment, I didn't blend it all in. I kept going in this direction, swooping. That's what I'm gonna call it. That's my technique. All right, so let's keep going. Let's do this next one. And you can see that the paint is getting a little bit more mixed, and that's okay. Because we're gonna blend them all anyway. And the nice thing is when you're layering the paint, not only is it going to do a pretty good job there of covering up all those brown lines that we did underneath, but it's going to give it, you know, multiple textures so that it doesn't look too flat. All right, we'll come back in with some nice orange. It's okay if we go a little bit out of line. Totally fine, because pumpkins are natural, so they're not perfect. They're a little lumpy and bumpy. All right, I'm going to right up to the stem like that, and I'm going to do this side. I'm going to be swooping in the other direction. Miss Marie's painting techniques, swooping. All right, and it comes out that pretty peachy color, and then it's going to get darker and darker as we go over it with more orange. And again, if you like your pumpkin even darker, you can go even darker. More orange. But don't just mush it in. Layer it like this. That way it has a nice texture to it. And nothing is perfect. And we like that. Now this part, it's a little hard for me to do upside down. I'm going to try to swoop in a little bit better because I want to keep that shape. There we go. I like to have that bump out in the front, and I'm going to even highlight that one a little bit darker because I want that to be really obviously a different segment. Let's do these ones. You don't have to do yours upside down, so that's easier for you. A little tricky upside down. Get some of that white off, and I'm going to go in with a little bit more orange. Okay, so now I'm going to clean my brush a little bit and go back in with just a straight orange. But you know what? I'm going to let it dry a little bit, just a little bit, because you know what? It's a little bit wet still. But it's so tempting because I love that orange. So I'll let it dry a little bit, and I'm going to go back in, and then I'm going to show you how to finish it out. So now I realize we're missing a little bit of yellow. What's the yellow for? I let it dry just a wee bit so that I'm not mixing the colors too much, and I'm going to take some yellow. I'm going to brush it off a little bit because I don't want to have too much yellow to start with. And I'm going to just go back in, and again, one of those swooping kind of motions where I had the lines to make the segments of the pumpkin. I'm going to add some yellow. Now, not everybody wants to add yellow. I like the yellow. I feel like it does add a certain brightness to it, brightens it up a little bit. And again, pumpkins do have a little bit of yellow to them. So we can come in there and just add a little bit of yellow on each of the segments. And again, that doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to later on outline those segments too. Get a little more yellow. We're going to outline the segments with some brown once this is dry all the way. I'm just adding some of that nice yellow in there just to brighten it up. And if you find you've done too much yellow, you can always go back and add the orange again. The main thing is not to overblend everything because you want it to have a bunch of different colors because that's what gives it texture. I'm going to back cover a little bit here with the orange because I can see too much brown coming through. There we go. I'm feeling pretty happy with my pumpkin. So I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to clean off my brush and I'm going to go back and mix the brown and the black again to make a darker brown. And we're going to do the stem. And hopefully by then our pumpkin will be dry and we can add some segments to it. Add, you know, highlight the segments and outline it with this brown and black. And at this point, I think it doesn't matter if we mix too much because we're almost done. And that's pretty much the color we're going to need in that brown, that dark brown, which is brown and black mixed together. Okay. So I'm going to go in there and paint my stem. And you see I'm doing it slowly, carefully, and making sure to cover up that white part. Just filling in where I had it. It was very relaxing. I really like painting. And since I do love fall and I do love pumpkins, this is actually a really fun project for me. I hope you are enjoying it too. Just take your time and relax. That comes out really nice, huh? And I'm going to mix a little bit more brown and black because I am going to need it. I don't want to have to mix it in the middle and come up with a new color that doesn't match. So I'm going to make sure I have plenty. All right, I'm going to do an outline now on my pumpkin. In this part, you got to go really slowly and carefully. And just use a little bit of paint. You could skip this part if you're not comfortable with it. That's okay too. But I think it'll make it pop a little bit more. That's why I'm doing it. It gives a little bit of shadow. And again, doesn't have to be perfect because pumpkins are what? Lumpy and bumpy. There we go. Lumpy and bumpy pumpkins. So I'm not going to worry if it's perfect. Just for real. And this part I have to be careful because I don't want to get my hand into the paint. Because I think it's still drying a little bit. You should probably let yours dry all the way. Miss Marie is rushing so that I can finish this video and get it out there for you. I want you to be able to do this at home. Okay, phew, not so bad. I think I did a good job on that. Let me just go back in here and cover these parts up that I forgot about before, that I had messed up. I dropped some paint there. You see how easy it is to just sort of fix it. Go back in. That's another nice thing about painting is that it's pretty easy to fix your mistakes. Yeah, looks pretty good. All right, so now let me get that white off the brush because I want a nice dark color for the pumpkin segments. Well, remember, let yours dry all the way. Let's see. I'm gonna go back in. I'm gonna maybe mix a little bit more. Going through this fairly fast here, but we still have plenty to use. Now I want to not have it be too heavily painty. New technical word, painty. I'm gonna go back where I had those segments and I'm gonna just add a light highlight. And if you let it dry all the way, it'll be darker. My bracelet's hitting the canvas. So you should let yours go all the way. All right, there's one. we had another one over here. Two. And then we had another nice one over here. Gotta mix more. Wow. I guess because I'm blending it so much and my plate's drying up fast. Good. And maybe I'll make that one go all the way up. Yeah. Gonna hold my back and admire it. Yes, I like it. All right, so now I'm gonna rinse it, rinse my brush, and we're gonna use the green. And we're gonna add some nice curly Q vines, pumpkin vines. Make sure my brush is not too loaded. This one I'm just gonna freehand. I'm just gonna do it how I wanna do it. Curly vines. And again, you don't have to do this. If you're happy with your pumpkin the way it is, leave it. I'm just gonna add some and make sure it's gotta be dark enough to cover up that brown. Swooping back around. See my swooping again, swooping technique. And I made a little curly Q vine. It's kind of light. I can go bigger if I want to. I can make it longer. I'm just sort of painting in a spiral. I can add another one. I have plenty of green, so I can add another little curly Q popping off over here. And that, again, totally up to you. Totally up to you how you want to do it. Okay, now I'm going to put some green and a little bit of white. And I'm going to add that final touch, which is a little bit of grass on the ground. There we go, get the white open. All right, and I'm going to mix them again because I don't like them to be perfect colors. They have to be sort of blended, mixed. So I've got a whole bunch over here on my plate that I'm going to dip into to do some paint, to do some grass. I'm going to try it with my brush and see how that comes out, holding my brush sideways instead of the flat way. I'm going to hold it sideways again, which is how I did these lines too, to get it a little bit thinner. I'm just going to add some grass. Again, it doesn't have to be heavy, doesn't have to be too much. Now I went back in with a little bit of white, and that adds, again, some depth and some texture to the grass, right? You see that? Okay. It's tricky upside down. I'm trying. Don't have a studio where a camera's behind my back, so I have to do this upside down. Just adding in a little bit of grass. Let's get a little more white in there. I like that. And I'm going sort of like thin lines this way, thin lines this way, so that it looks like real grass, you know, just sort of growing every which way, not perfect. And if you're feeling super brave and your pumpkin is all the way dry, you can even put a little bit of grass in front of your pumpkin. Just little bits. Just little bits in front. That's only if you're feeling really brave and your pumpkin's all the way dry. All right. And there it is. There is our pumpkin painting for Halloween. We learned a lot today about how to layer paint to create textures. We did that here on the fence, and we did that on the pumpkin, and we even did that on the grass. We added different colors of paint, not blending them perfectly, and that adds the textures. All right. So I hope you have as much fun as I did with this painting. I really enjoyed it. And have a great fall season, great holiday season with the Halloween coming up, and enjoy. And I will see you soon.